This seems like a good time to talk about fear and sin. As I was saying Sunday Mass, 6:30 on Sunday evening, March 15th, my heart was filled with fear. Right before that 6:30 Mass, I had heard that the CDC in Atlanta had recommended the cancellation or postponement of all gatherings of 50 people or more until the middle of May. And as I was saying that 6:30 Mass for the few people that were around, my heart was filled with fear, uncertainty. Let's think about fear in this time of the COVID-19 virus, as we're doing things we've never done before, and how this fear might impact us in our spiritual life. Fear is a response of self-preservation. All fear is related in some way to death. Whether it's the small fear of being outcast from your social group because you want to go to church and maybe they don't, or to larger fears, like in a situation such as this, and running to the grocery store to get milk and eggs and bread. Or maybe it's even larger fear of confronting a death-defying moment. Maybe you've been in the military, or maybe you're a thrill seeker who's done something. But that self-preservation movement within us is in some ways always a response to the fear of death. As Christians, we know that all death is a result of sin. That it was by the devil's envy that sin and death entered the world, and the temptation and the fall of Adam and Eve. That this world with life was created to be good by the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but by sin we have rejected love and life, and we have thus received death. So our own death may not come from our own sins, but it certainly comes from the effect of sin in the world. Because of its tie to sin, death, and the fear of death become strong moments of temptation for the enemy. He will use these moments in your life to tempt you to things you normally wouldn't consider when you're in your right mind. Sins that normally might be repugnant to you are much more entrancing, much more desirous to the eye than they would be when we're not under this fear of death. So one of the things in a time like this to watch out for is spiritual death. That the enemy will lure you to sin, to grasp after something for yourself, whether it's some pleasure, whether it's some notoriety, whatever it might be, but in order to bring about a spiritual death. And that brings us to the thing that we really need to fear. As Christians, we no longer have to fear bodily death. That is the power of the resurrection of Jesus. We've seen and we have heard the apostles' testimony that God has saved us from death. And that's why for us our physical death is no longer something to fear or to dread. It's something to mourn. We can mourn the death of our loved ones. But when we face the reality of death, we can go into it with faith, trusting that God will save us and bring us to new life in Jesus and the resurrection from the dead that we confess every Sunday in our creed. What we should fear is sin. We should fear spiritual death, which would cut us off from Jesus in our bodily death. In the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 10, Jesus says, "Do not fear the one who can destroy the body, but rather fear the one who can destroy the soul in Gehenna." So in this time of fear, we're going to be fighting some strong bodily instincts of self-preservation. So we want to face these fears with courage and with faith. Courage to know that we can overcome these things, we can work through these things, they're not the end. And faith to know that even if I should lose my body, I do not want to lose my soul. And that the All-Powerful One will give me a body greater than this in the resurrection of the body at the end of all things. Dear friends, in this time of uncertainty and fear, don't be afraid also to bring those fears to Jesus, to name them to Him, and ask for Him to bring His grace and His comfort in them. Ask for the protection of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, who protected the infant Jesus. Ask for the protection of your guardian angels. They are with us to strengthen us, to bring us and preserve our life close with Jesus. I'm Father Andrew Dickinson. God bless you.